Hey, what is good, my dudes? Defayorn here, bringing you part 8 of our Arcane spellcasting guide. In this video, we're going to be talking about Mage Spells level 8. We're going to talk about every single spell from top to bottom, start to finish, what it does, what it's good for, and whether or not you should be taking it in your runs. Just a couple caveats before we get started. I do play an insane difficulty, so everybody in my party will be taking double damage. I also play hardcore, no saves, no reloading, so if we die, we start over from Baldur's Gate 1 and work our way through the saga. And finally, we have all components of SES installed. So everything I'm saying is going to be in regarding to this rule set, but 99% of what I say will also apply to your core rules, unmodded runs as well. We also have a tier list set up. S tier spells are spells that are at the very top. These are spells that are awesome. Stack your spellbook with them and use them all the time because they're amazing. A tier spells are spells that are pretty good or situationally awesome. B tier spells are spells that are situationally pretty good and fairly mediocre, okay at times. And C tier spells are spells that really, unless you have nothing else, there's really no reason for you to be casting them because there are so much better spells in the spellbook for that level. And finally, at the very bottom are RP tier spells, which stands for roleplay, but luckily we don't have to deal with that because there's not a single level 8 roleplay tier spell. Alright, so let's go and get started. We're going to work our way from top to bottom, go for the S tier spells, then A, B, then finally finish up with our C tier spells. Now the first S tier spell here is going to be Abi-Dalzim's Horrid Wilting. This is a necromancy spell, so illusionists do not have access to it. Visual range of the caster. Casting time of 8, so it is a fairly decent cast time. This is going to be about 5 seconds of real time before this goes off, assuming you don't have Robe of Vecna or Amulet of Power. It'll shoot a projectile just like Fireball, which will activate instantly, doing damage, giving enemies a chance to save versus half in a 30-foot radius. And this spell does 1d8 damage per level of the caster. Obviously, enemies can save versus half, just like most spells. And this spell is especially devastating to water elementals and plant creatures who receive a penalty of -2 to their saving throws. Off the top of my head, I don't know of any single thing in Baldur's Gate that this would actually apply to. I'm assuming this is something that's left over from D&D. Pretty much every spell in Baldur's Gate is literally stolen directly from D&D. Not really stolen, it's a D&D game, but you know what I'm saying. It's taken directly from, literally copy-pasted from the D&D spellbook. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that this would do double damage to. I'm sure there's at least something out there, but I can't remember being attacked by any plant creatures. Maybe the shambling mounds, but chances are you don't have Horrid Wilting yet, because you're not going to get it till the Underdark unless it's an RNG drop. Anyways, regardless, this spell does a lot of damage. It's AoE as well. It does not ignore MR, so casting this on a large group of drow is probably not going to do much for you, but casting it on pretty much anything else is going to do tons. 1d8, like I said, per level is a ton. Being able to combo this in a chain contingency is really what makes this shine. You can actually socket 3 of these into a chain contingency, have all 3 of them go off at the beginning of a fight, and then pop our improved alacrity along with a time stop. Cast this over and over and over, and by the time the time stop goes off and all your Horrid Wiltings go off, every single thing on the screen is dead. And that's not an exaggeration. That happens all the time. This is one of the reasons that Edwin is such a broken piece of shit, because of that necklace he carries. Being able to cast so many of these is just really game-breaking at times. If you're fighting Ilisar the Quick, for example, you can actually use this to end the fight before it even begins. If you're fighting Irenicus at the end of Hell, same thing. You can use a chain contingency Horrid Wilting, and it will actually kill Irenicus before he even gets started in Slayer form. Because of the delay of SCS having the mage spells go off, a chain contingency Horrid Wilting can and sometimes will go off before they get to cast at all, instantly ending the fight before it even begins. For that reason, I tend to avoid using this in a chain contingency versus bosses especially, and I'll sometimes use it for, you know, unimportant fights like fighting a handful of dudes in Gromnir's castle or something like that, but this spell is really absolutely devastating. If you're not using this spell, and it's also party friendly too, that's the best part, right? Fireball, Cloud Kill, all those other spells will hit your party too. Horrid Wilting does not. It only affects enemies. It's also very, very common for liches to cast this immediately at the start of the fight, which is why it's so important for you to have protection for magical energy up. This spell is super common for enemy spellcasters, and it's something that you should be doing a lot too. Unless you're fighting somebody that's throwing up protection for magical energy, or you're fighting something that has super high MR like Drow or Planetars, Horrid Wilting is really going to be your bread and butter when it comes to dealing damage as a mage late game. Super awesome spell. Can't say enough good things about it. You should definitely take it and use it in your runs. Alright, let's get on to Incendiary Cloud. Very similar to Horrid Wilting in the sense that this is going to be another one of your bread and butter damage spells. This is an evocation spell. So, drawing a blank here. Enchanters won't be able to use it. It lasts for 1 turn, and this is your final, really, truly awesome cloud kill spell. Very long cast time, just like Horrid Wilting, of 8, 30-foot radius of a cloud, and everyone inside can save to avoid half the damage. And this spell will deal 1d4 points of fire damage per level of the caster each round they're in the area of effect. That is an insane amount of damage. You gotta keep in mind, Horrid Wilting hits once for 1d8. This spell can hit up to 10 times. It lasts for a full turn. If enemies are in this for the entire turn, this will actually proc 10 times. So let's say you're a level 20 wizard. You throw out 1 Incendiary Cloud. That does 20 d4 points of damage. Once, right there. And then another 6 seconds, it does it again. And then again. And then again. And this can add up so fucking quickly. And then obviously, of course, they can save versus half. They might have fire resistance, reducing this even further. But this does an insane amount of damage. And don't forget, just like Horrid Wilting, you can put 3 of these in a chain contingency. And you could literally have to pull out a calculator to do the math to see just how much damage this will do to a large group of enemies. The only thing that sucks about this spell is it can hit your party members too. And of course, as just like all other elemental damage, if you have people in your party with over 100% fire resistance standing in this cloud, they will get healed. For example, if you have a fighter like Corgan, you give him Furcrag's armor, you give him the fire resistance ring, and then you maybe give him a fire resistance helm. He's now sitting on 127% fire resistance. He's standing in Incendiary Cloud taking hits from enemies, and the Incendiary Cloud is actually healing him while doing damage to enemies. I tend to avoid this spell for one reason only. I play on insane difficulty, which means you take double damage. If anyone in your party is standing in this spell without fire resistance, they will burn to ashes instantly. This spell does way too much damage as is, and on insane difficulty where you're taking double damage, this is particularly devastating. If I was playing solo, as in, like, for example, say a Dragon Disciple, somebody that always has 100% fire resistance, I would cast this spell literally every fight, multiple times every fight, and I could pretty much solo the game with this spell alone. It is so insanely powerful. It does not ignore MR. However, because it procs and ticks once per round, this is still actually really useful against Drow. I'd like this a lot on Sendai, although obviously we haven't actually seen it on Sendai because everyone who watches my stream knows exactly what happens every time we do Sendai. That being said, this spell is very awesome against that. Large groups of enemies, especially anyone that doesn't have fire resistance. Obviously, you don't want to be using this on a fire elemental. That's not going to do anything for you. Using this inside the fire giant enclave is not going to do anything for you. But pretty much anywhere else, this spell is going to do fucking tons. Especially if you combo it with some other CC effect, like say Greater Malison and a simple stun. All of a sudden, your enemies are not only stuck inside this extremely damaging spell, but they can't even escape even if they want to. That being said, pretty much every wizard in the game on SCS will cast protection from fire at the start of a fight, making themselves completely immune to this. But if you're using this on anything but a wizard, trust me, they're going to burn to ashes pretty damn quickly. This spell is really powerful. Can't say enough good things about it. Definitely recommend taking it in your runs, boys. Alright, up next is Powered Blind. Powered Blind is a conjuration summoning spell, so diviners can't use it. It targets the visual range of the caster, one person, lasting 6 rounds. Very quick cast time of 1, and then it will spread out in a 10-foot area radius. This is basically a blind on steroids, in the sense that this is a blind that has no saving throw. It's an extremely quick spell. You can use this to blind somebody, as well as blind everyone around them instantly. This is great for not only blinding fighters, blinding archers. Using this on the Huntress is fucking especially effective. You can also use this on enemy spellcasters, although many enemy casters at this point in the game will have a spell turning or a spell trap up, so if they're targeted by it, they will be immune to it. However, I believe the spread will ignore spell trap, although I have to test that to be sure. A lot of times, spread effects like Insect Plague will still go off even if they're immune to the initial target. I'm pretty sure the spread still goes off, which makes this a very effective spell. Even aside from that, there's all sorts of uses for this. If a cleric in the back is casting a Flame Strike on your party, you can instantly interrupt her with a blind. And unlike, Silence or some other abilities, although the power with Silence doesn't have a saving throw, unlike some other abilities, the fact that this has no saving throw is extremely powerful. You can also use this on your own troops. Obviously, that's not something you want to use all the time, but if you're using it on a thief, for example, he'll actually be able to not only stealth in combat, but set traps in combat, because the reason that works is the way the game actually does a check to see if you're in combat as a thief. is it will actually do a line of sight radius. If the thief can see somebody, he won't be able to stealth. If a thief can see somebody, he won't be able to set a trap. If he's blind, he can't see anybody. So for some weird reason, if you blind your thieves or your bards, they'll actually be able to drop traps in combat as well as spam stealth and get off those really nasty backstabs. And you could say, well, I mean, it's going to give them a penalty to Thaco. Who cares? At this point, when you're using this spell, you're going to be so late in the game that a -4 Thaco penalty is fucking nothing. And being able to spam backstab with your thieves is really, really cool. But most importantly, being able to drop spike trap, time stop trap with your thieves is extremely, extremely powerful. Excuse me. There's really a lot of cool things you can do with this. I'm a big fan of it. Typically, you won't see me use this a lot on stream. Just because, you know, we also have Incendiary Cloud and Horrid Wilting in this exact same spell book. But this spell is still really, really strong. Very, very useful. This is really a spell that I always like to take at least one of, just in case, but you can't take more of it and use it more often. But of course, it also depends on your party composition as well. If your party is using a lot of fighters, you know, Power Word Blind is going to be much, much better. If your party is using wizards, or your wizard is your main damage source, then you're probably not going to be able to take it over Incendiary Cloud and Horrid Wilting. It just really depends on your group composition, but this is definitely a more underrated spell. Something you really want to be trying out and using in your group, assuming it works well for your composition. Super good spell. Can't say enough good things about it. Up next, we have Simulacrum. Simulacrum is an illusion spell, so necromancers can't use it. It has a fairly short duration of 1 round per level, casting time of 9, so very long cast time, and this will make a duplicate of the caster at 60% of the caster level, 60% of the caster's HP, and I believe 60% of the caster's spells. I think it's actually slightly less than that. It says 60, but it doesn't really seem to be 60. Either that or it's not taking gear into effect. I know when I use this with Edwin, I don't get nearly as many spells as I thought. But basically, it makes an extra duplicate of the caster, although a slightly more weaker one. They get all the caster's items, they get all their caster's quick slot items, they get all the caster's special abilities, they get all the caster's equipment, so that you can make a Simulacrum from, say, for example, a fighter mage that has all of its equipment on, Robe of Vecna, Helm of Baldur, just absolutely everything that your character has, the Simulacrum has too. That is insanely good. It is a lower level, so you are going to be missing out on quite a few spells. But where this really shines is not as a pure mage, but as a hybrid mage, like a thief mage, fighter mage, something like that. Because unlike the project image spell, a Simulacrum can actually attack. So if you're a fighter mage, you can make a Simulacrum, throw an improved haste on it, and it's now like you basically cloned yourself. Because the fighter mage isn't really losing much when it comes to actual attacks. It might have a tiny, tiny bit smaller Thaco, but when it's using Flail of the Ages or fucking whatever your weapon of choice is, Fobane, Axe the Yielding, the Ravager, whatever the hell it is, it's still going to be hitting just as hard, still using all the effects on the weapons, and still tearing through the enemy. And especially as useful as a fighter mage, because then you can actually cast Stone Skin, Mirror Image, Spell Immunity, all that good shit on it. The lower level spells, you pretty much get most of them. It's really the higher level spells that start to fall off. It's going to be very late in the game before you start seeing level 7, 8, and level 9 spells on a Simulacrum. And unless you're a pure mage, I don't think you can even get level 9 spells on a Simulacrum, although I'd have to check that. But still, this spell is super useful. It's basically adding a 7th party member to your party if you're using it as a fighter mage or a thief mage. Like I said, it's not as good if you are a pure mage because you do miss out on so many spells. And of course, because it's 60% level, your spells aren't going to be as effective because you're a lower level. But on a fighter mage especially, this spell really, really shines, and it's very, very, very strong. It's one of the reasons that Valor Helm, which is a helm that lets anyone cast Simulacrum, is so fucking powerful. If you give that to a pure fighter, it's gonna basically double your damage output. It's absolutely insane. Of course, it can buff itself, it can buff other people. Like I said, it's like having a 7th party member. Super strong. Can't say enough good things about this. If you aren't a necromancer, you should definitely be using Simulacrum. And up next, our final S tier spell is Spell Trigger. This is one of my favorite spells. So Spell Trigger is an invocation evocation spell. Depending on your installation, that doesn't matter. Everyone can use it. But if you do not have that component installed or activated, then obviously, you know, enchanters won't be able to use this. So just like Sequencer and Minor Sequencer, this is basically a higher level Sequencer. It will store 3 spells, but unlike Sequencer, which caps at level 4, this caps at level 6, which opens a lot of new doors. Access to level 5 and 6 spells is huge. Level 5, of course, you can get Cloud Kill. Being able to drop 3 Cloud Kills at once is going to be a lot of damage. That adds up very, very quickly. Being able to launch 3 lower resists at once is fucking huge as well. Being able to drop a Planetar from 100 to 0 MR, a Dragon from 100 to 0 MR, or a particular Drow or something like that. The Ravager. There's so many different enemies. Actually, I think the Ravager is immune to level 5 spells. I take that back. Yeah, I take that back. The Ravager should be immune to those spells, depending on your installation. But dragons, especially, this is super useful on Drow, Planetars. Pretty much every enemy at a certain point in TOB is going to be rolling with MR. They're going to be having at least 50. Bosses especially are going to have very high MR. Balthazar, for example, he's going to be sitting on a ton of MR, so spell trigger low resist is insanely useful. There's really so many things you can do with this spell. There's so many damn things you can do with this spell. You can use it for damage, you can use it for defenses. I mean, it's basically the same thing we said for Minor Sequencer, and Sequencer applies to Spell Trigger as well. It's just more doors now open up because it can work on level 5 and 6 spells. When I use Spell Trigger, it's almost always for either Cloud Kill or Lower Resist. Those are my two bread and butter spells in a Spell Trigger. The thing that sucks about this spell is you can only get it in Baldur's Gate 2, Shadows of Amn, if and only if you get it as a random drop. From my knowledge, there are no set drops for Spell Trigger, and to my knowledge, again, there are no stores that sell Spell Trigger. So unless you get it as a drop, you just don't get it, period, which sucks. But as a sorcerer, of course, you can pick it up, you might get it as a random drop, and of course you will have it in TOB. So super, super awesome spell. Really can't say enough good things about it. And then just like before with the sequencers and the minor sequencer, if you load spells up into a spell trigger and then rest, you get all those spells back. So you can spell trigger 3 cloud kills and then be able to cast cloud kill again 3 more times. And again, it's just the damage you can do with this, the resistance check you can do with this, all the different things you can do with this, both offensively and defensively. You can talk for an hour about it. Can't say enough good things about it. Definitely take spell trigger. Awesome spell. And that is going to be it for our S-tier spells. Let's move on to our A-tier spells. The first A-tier spell here is Maze, the Conjuration Summoning spell. So diviners can't use it. It is a touch spell, so you do have to actually touch somebody with it. Although you don't have to actually roll a check for it, you just have to be in melee range. Fairly quick cast time of 3. Target 1 creature, and it will put them into a maze, basically taking them completely out of the fight. Depending on their intelligence is how long this will last. If they're incredibly stupid, they'll be stuck in that maze for 2d4 turns. And they'll spend less and less time in the maze depending on their intelligence. Up to 18 and up, a minimum of 1d4 rounds. This is actually a fairly useful spell, just because it is actually really, really useful to take someone out of the fight even temporarily. If you're using this on a Mind Flayer, chances are you're wasting this spell. But if you're using it on a fighter, for example, he's probably going to be stuck in there a fairly long time. I really don't use this spell very often, again, because I find that there are other more useful spells in here. There are very few times I can possibly think of to where I really like, damn, I need a maze right now. I need to take this person out of the fight now. Because by the time you're able to cast Maze, Imprisonment's right around the corner. So when it comes to dealing with Planetars, Imprisonment is really the best choice, assuming you're not just going to murder them with your fighters. Imprisonment's really the best way to get rid of them. Maze obviously isn't going to work on somebody who has improved invisibility, for example, so it's really hard to hit a caster with this. That being said, you can, of course, hit clerics with this, being able to take out an elite fire giant temporarily from the fight. I don't remember what their int score is. I believe it's 12. Although I'd have to double check that. Either way, they're going to be out of the fight for a turn, basically. And so this can come in handy at times. This is a nice, oh shit thing to cast on your mage, if and only if you're out of other spells, or you just don't really have anyone there to deal with that particular target. You can walk up to him in maze, knock him out, take him out for a little bit, and then come deal with them later. And for that reason, it is a fairly good spell. I just don't end up using it that often. But I couldn't possibly end up putting it below an A tier just because it does have its uses, for sure. Up next is Symbol Stun, another Conjuration Summoning spell, so diviners can't use it. It has a range of 90 feet, a very long cast time of 9, and this will set a trap on the ground with a 30-foot radius that, when activated, will stun everybody who fails their save with a -4 penalty for 2+1 round for every 3 levels of the caster. Unlike the other symbol spells, which I'll talk about in a minute, this one's actually fairly decent. One, it's a stun, which basically means that if they're stunned, they're gonna fucking die in seconds, right? Anything that can't defend itself, every attack lands on it. At this stage of the game, every one of your fighters is either gonna have, you know, a very powerful weapon and improved haste on it, or Honestly, if they're using their fist, they'll be able to kill something in seconds. No matter what, if something's stunned, it's going to die quickly. So this is actually really, really nice because of the penalty it comes with. If you combo this with a Greater Malison, they're gonna be forced to save with a -8 penalty. Even if you're fighting dwarves with some of the best saves in the game, having a -8 penalty is fucking huge. And this will go off far more often than not, and stun far more often than you think it would, just because of the penalties that it's associated with. For example, Chaos comes with a -4 penalty. Chaos still works even in TOB. I've had Chaos party members, I've had people get hit by Chaos at level 30. It's all because of that penalty. That penalty makes all the difference in the world. So when you combo this with Malison, launch it at your enemies, and especially if you're already dealing other AoE effects like Cloud Kills, as we mentioned before, Incendiary Cloud, or if you just want to go and throw free action on your fighters, send them into the front, throw this spell along with a Malison, and now everyone around your fighters is stunned, and your fighters just have a field day beating the shit out of people who can't fight back. Super useful spell. I have to still say, though, at the end of the day, the spell isn't as good as some of the other S-tier spells we mentioned, just because, again, if one of your fighters gets dispelled, you'll basically end up stunning your fighter, just because, again, the -4 penalty is still pretty damn excessive. The simple stun also sometimes doesn't go off right away. If you've ever played with Skull Trap, if you've ever watched some of my videos of me dropping Skull Traps on enemies, I'll have people run over the Skull Trap and have it not go off, and it drives me fucking crazy. The same thing happens for simple stun. Sometimes one enemy will walk into the symbol, pop it, but still not get hit because he runs out of the range. It says it's a 30-foot radius, that's a big fucking lie. It's not even damn close. It is super easy for you to dodge this spell. It's same thing with Dragon's Breath and Combat. And I've actually been hit by symbols many, many times. I have never actually been stunned by a symbol, feared by a symbol, or killed by a symbol, because they are so fucking easy to dodge. That's one of the first things that SCS changes when it comes to fighting liches. In the original game, liches spam symbols. They love them. In SCS, they don't do them at all, because it's super, super easy to avoid them. And for that reason, I have to put these as an A-tier spell instead of an S-tier spell, just because it's fairly unreliable because of that. It's really, really easy to avoid. And it'll eventually get to the point where every enemy you're fighting is going to be hasted. Whether improved haste, regular haste, or they're wearing some item or using some potion or something to make them move faster. And that just makes this really, 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 really hard to land. I know you could stack a couple of them on the ground and then try to lure the enemies into them, just like you do with Skull Trap, but like I said, it doesn't work as well as it should. That being said, when it does work, awesome spell. And for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and leave it at an A-tier spell. Alright, up next is the only B-tier spell, Bigby's Clenched Fist. And this is an evocation spell, and I really don't like this spell. Anyways, B-tier spell targets one creature, range of 35 feet, casting time of 8, so a fairly long cast time, and the effect itself is 4 rounds. The reason this spell is B-tier, not C-tier, is because the first one right here. It will smash the target for 3d6 damage with no save. That doesn't really matter. That damage is pathetic, inconsequential. This hits for nothing. This is worse than Shade Lightning. But here's what's nice about this spell. The target is stunned without a save. Granted, it's only for a single round, but that's the same reason Implosion is so fucking good. The Implosion damage is nice, but really the reason you're casting that spell is for the stun. The rest of this is inconsequential, because they get a very small penalty to saving, and then they take a very tiny bit more damage, and then they take a very tiny bit more damage after that. This spell does fucking nothing for damage, even for people who repeatedly fail to save. The reason you cast this is for that stun. You guys remember how fucking broken it is to hit somebody with a command and have everyone in your party attack them in Baldur's Gate 1. Bigby's is basically the same thing. It's a higher level command that will always fucking work, depending on, you know, whether the person actually has immunity or spell trap or something like that to block it. If they don't, this will always fucking stun and give your party a chance to just beat the shit out of them real quick. It doesn't go through MR though, which actually really sucks. But like I said, it's almost a viable spell. It's almost a viable spell, and for that reason I'm putting it above C tier, just because this basically will guarantee your party a chance to instantly kill somebody if they get hit with this stun no save, which is really, really, really handy. This will work on bosses. You can use this to hit fucking Yagashura and instantly kill him at the beginning of the fight. You can use this on all sorts of enemies. Like I said, the only ones you're really not going to get this off on are going to be mages and people with super high MR. So it does have its uses, but I couldn't possibly put it in A tier. I couldn't possibly put it in A tier just because it's not as reliable. Same thing with Simple Stun. It's just not as fucking reliable as it should be. But it is still, like I said, it's totally situational. I've blathered on enough about this. I'm just talking in a fucking circle right now. This spell's okay. I wouldn't recommend stocking this in my spell book. I probably wouldn't even take one in there, but it does have its uses at times. Alright, let's get on to the C tier spells. First C tier spell is Improved Mantle, Abjuration spell. This is another shitty version of protection from magical weapons. This makes you immune to +3 or lower level enchantment. That is actually garbage. Almost every magical creature in this game is at this point is gonna be striking with +4 at minimum, if not +6, which will actually hit through absolute immunity. And the same reason absolute immunity blows. Now, I do have the mod installed that actually improves Mantle, Improved Mantle, and absolute immunity, making them more useful. But this is a level 8 spell. Protection from magical weapons is a level 6 spell. That is a huge fucking difference. Why on earth would you cast something at level 9 that you could cast at level 6, level 8, a level 6, level 7, and level 6? It does the exact same fucking thing, and it's a 4-round duration, a super quick cast time. I mean, the spell just sucks. At no point are you going to be attacked by enemies with normal weapons at this point. There's no reason to do that shit. You should always take protection from magical weapons. That being said, if you don't have any other level 8 spells, then having an extra Mantle or Improved Mantle isn't that bad. It's obviously better to make yourself immune to weapons than to not. That being said, the spell really sucks. You really should never be taking it. Up next is Pierce Shield. I actually really can't stand this spell. This is an Abjuration spell again as well. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Improved Mantle, Abjuration, Transmuters can't use it, Transmuters can't use it. Range of 40 feet, a cast time of 8, so super long cast time, targets one creature, and will dispel one spell off this list here, and then reduce their magic resistance. So basically, this is combining a secret word and a lower resistance into one level 8 ability. Whoop-de-fucking-do. This is not going to reduce magic resistance by enough for you to actually hit them, assuming they have a decent amount. If they're a drow, if they're a dragon, if they're a planetar, whatever, there's no fucking reason to use this spell. The only exception to this is the Ravager, because I believe the Ravager has a lot of MR and is immune to level 5 and below spells, so this is the only time you'd ever use Pierce Shield in the entire fucking game. Now granted, I have said in the past that protection from cold is useless for every fight except Eidolon, and I made it a B tier spell because of that. I cannot in good conscience give Pierce Shield a B tier spell rating, because protection from cold is level 3 spell. Pierce Shield is level 8. There is no reason for this to ever show up in your spellbook. I cannot fucking stand it. A lot of people think this spell is awesome. I just don't get it. If you have any other times where you're using Pierce Shield and you're like, this spell is amazing, thank God for this spell, let me know. I mean, maybe if you're trying to hit Sendai with this, or somebody that already has a fuck ton of MR and is casting mage defense spells, maybe a super strong Lich. I mean, I don't know. I just... Even then, what the fuck's the point? Getting rid of one spell protection is not going to be able to fucking let you actually hit them. You need to get rid of all their spell protections, because higher Liches at this point are going to be throwing up spell shield, multiple spell shields to keep their spell traps safe. I just don't see this being useful. I just really don't. I just fucking don't. If you guys have any ideas for this spell, hit me up. I'm all fucking ears. I love to find out new things about spells. That's so cool to me. I love it when you guys tell me in the comments of cool uses you found for a spell. Keep doing that shit. If you find one for Pierce Shield, hit me with it. Up next, Protection from Energy, another Abjuration spell, so Transmuters can't use this, whoop-de-doo. This is a touch spell lasting 1 round per level, a super long cast time of 8, and it will give one creature 75% immunity to all energy attacks, fire, cold, acid, magic, and electricity from magical or non-magical sources. This is irrelevant. There's no such thing as magical or non-magical energy sources. Whether it's fire or magical fire, it still does the same fire damage, so you don't really have to worry about that. I'm not certain if they were ever planning on coding that at some point, or if that was just an oversight or what, but there's no such thing as non-magical energy and magical energy. It's all the same. Fire is fire. It's not magical or non-magical. It's just fucking fire. Now, the reason this spell sucks is because, for one, the duration is absolute garbage. 1 round per level is going to wear off fairly quickly. And 2, it's not even 100%. It's 75%. There's no reason to cast this when I can cast Protection from Fire, level 3, and Protection from Magical Energy, level 6. Now I'm completely immune to all magical damage, and I'm immune to all fire damage. Cold at this point is really irrelevant. The only acid in the game that's not coming from a dragon is going to be Death Fog, and enemies don't really cast that all too often. Electricity the same way. At this point, Lightning Bolt is very fucking rare. Chain Lightning does no damage whatsoever. Unless you're fighting a Baldur, there's no reason to be casting Protection from Electricity. So the only two things you want to protect yourself in this spell here are Fire and Magical Energy, and there are 2 spells that do that better and longer. Why would you ever want to cast this spell? I don't get it. If it worked for physical damage too, this spell would be S tier all the way. I'm with you 100% there, but it doesn't. It's only for magical damage and elemental damage. So this spell just sucks. You don't get anything out of it. It's just a complete waste of a level 8 slot. Why would you cast this spell when you can cast, you know, Horrid, Wilting, Incendiary Cloud, Spell Trigger, something else? The spell just sucks. That being said, every other wizard in the game will cast this spell just to give themselves those resistances, but what the fuck's the point? Why would a Lich cast Protection from Electricity when you're not going to be hitting it with Electricity spell, or a Cold spell, or an Acid spell? I mean, it's just, it's stupid as hell. It's really dumb as hell. Can't say enough bad things about it. Let's go and move on to the next spell. Up next, we have Summon Fiend. This is a Conjuration spell, so diviners can't use it. Lasts 15 rounds, a long cast time of 9, and this is going to be a higher level Summon Demon spell. I actually don't like this one as much. Glabrezu are very annoying for you to deal with, but not so much for an enemy. I feel like a Tanar'ri is actually better, because they get their Death Gaze, they get their other really nasty instant abilities. Glabrezu are still strong, they get a lot of attacks per round. Tanar'ri don't get many attacks per round, Glabrezu get tons. But the exact same problems with Tanar'ri, Glabrezu has as well. 1, protection from evil does not guarantee the demon will not attack you. At least with my current installation of SCS, protection from evil is not a guarantee whatsoever. The demon can't target anything, or can't see anything, he's going to attack you, even though you do have protection from evil. I think that's a component, it's something to do with the protection from undead component, which is the same way. Casting a scroll of protection from undead, liches will still attack you if they can't see anything else. That being said, it does have more spells than a Tanar'ri, and it can do more damage than a Tanar'ri, but I personally feel that if you're going to summon a demon, the Tanar'ri is probably a little bit better, which is going to be the Summon Fiend, the level 7 version. That being said, if you really enjoy summoning demons, I think this spell is a fun spell. I really do. I've said that about all the demon spells. I think it's super fun. I love to have lots of shit flying on my screen. I love seeing spells just go back and forth, especially using this at Yagashura's camp. I love casting Time Stop and summoning a bunch of demons and just watch the shit fly. It's fun as hell to me. But that being said, is this spell a good spell? It's not even close. Again, compared with the other spells we have in here, there is no reason for you to ever cast a Summon Fiend. It's not that good. But it's a fun spell, just like I'll say with the other ones. There are a lot of spells in this game that suck ass, but are super fun to play with, and this is definitely one of them. But I wouldn't recommend stocking this if you're trying to do a no-save, no-reload run. Up next, Symbol Death, also a Conjuration spell. This is not a Necromancy spell, so diviners can't use it. Very long cast time of 9, same thing, 30-foot radius. I don't know if that's actually true. Saving throw negates, and when this explodes, it will cause every creature with less than 60 HP to save versus death or die. That is fucking garbage. Not only do they get to save, but then they don't get a penalty either. And that's just insane. This spell never, and of course, only works if they have less than 60 HP. What a garbage ass spell. 1, they can dodge it super easily, just like we said with the symbols. 2, there's no penalty to the save. And 3, the fact that they get a save at all is ridiculous. And 4, you have to have less than 60 HP. I probably have said that like 3 or 4 times, but this spell just sucks. It's absolute garbage. I also personally think that Wail the Banshee is complete shit for the exact same reason that enemies get a save. And for that reason, I can't recommend ever using this spell. Even if you have no spells, there's really no reason for you to cast this. Also, I'm pretty sure this is not party-friendly. I'm pretty sure you can technically kill your party members with this. So if Ari, for some reason, with her garbage-ass hit points, is stupid enough to walk into this area, or is confused, or cannot escape it when it goes off, can actually die from your very own Symbolverse death. Because her saves are terrible, and she has no HP. So, all in all, this spell just sucks. I can't say enough bad things about it. Don't recommend taking it, but... And if you want to, do you, dude. World's your oyster, boys. I mean... I was trying to think, maybe you could use it to get rid of summons, but you have this really cool spell at level 6 called Death Spell, so you don't fucking need this for that either. Alright, up next, Symbol Fear. Final spell here at level 8. Also Conjuration Summoning spell, so diviners can't use it. Very long cast time again of 9. Again, the same garbage 30-foot radius, saving throw negates. Unlike Death, though, at least they get a -4 penalty. And so if they fail with a -4 penalty, they get feared for 2+1 round for every 3 levels of the caster. The same problem, though. Why the hell would I want to fear my enemies when I can stun them? The exact same thing. Why on earth would I want to fear them when I can stun them? If they're stunned, every attack lands and they're not moving, which makes it much, much easier to kill them when they're feared. Not to mention that pretty much every cleric and mage in the game with SCS is going to have protection from fear up before the fight even starts. So that makes Symbol Fear even more garbage. And then on top of that, All undead are immune to fear. A lot of magical creatures are immune to fear. Pretty much every boss in the game is immune to fear after fucking Saravok in Baldur's Gate 1. So there's just so few times that this is actually really, really useful to have. I mean, I just really can't think of a time where I'd ever be like, if only I had a symbol fear right here, I could have won this fight. Never in a million fucking years. Never in a million years. I'd use 10 summon fiends before I used one symbol fear. Spell absolutely sucks. Alright. That's going to do it for level 8, guys. If you have any comments, questions, if you think I'm full of shit, if you think that I am talking shit about your favorite spell, if you think Symbol Death or Symbol Fear, one of the other spells I shit-talked is awesome, let me know in the comments. If you think I'm full of shit, let me know. If you agree, let me know. And tell me what your favorite level 8 spell is in the comments, boys. I love to hear all the stories of your Baldur's Gate runs, boys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope each and every one of you guys has an awesome day. And if anyone ever wants to watch somebody play Baldur's Gate, I stream daily on Twitch. Feel free to check it out. The link is in the description. I also have all the spells organized, so if you want to hear about a particular spell, you can click it down there. It's going to be in the description for the video. Thank you so much again for watching, guys. I hope you all have an awesome day. Much love and God bless.